Wake up in the grind, clock ticking, 20 minutes flat, freedom main-handed, knives built where the real
Welcome
ones
back
at.
to another episode of the 20-Minute Freedom Project. I am your host, Josh Lopez, and this show is for those who want ownership, discipline, freedom, and to build a life they have always wanted, one that is earned, not handed to them. Today we're talking about a word that can change your entire trajectory, and that word is conviction. Because if you really zoom out, most people don't lose because they're incapable. They lose because they hesitate. They second guess. They keep one foot in and one foot out. They live in the land of maybe. Maybe I'll start. Maybe next week. Maybe when the time is right. Maybe when I'm ready. Maybe when I feel better. Maybe when the money is right. Maybe when I have more clarity. Maybe when I learn that one more thing that I think I need to know. And I'm telling you right now, clarity is not coming to save you. Conviction is. Conviction is the bridge between what you say you want and what you actually do. Conviction is the thing that takes an idea and turns it into execution. Conviction is what makes someone trustworthy. Not to other people, though, but first to themselves. And if you're listening to this, there's a good chance you already know what you need to do. You don't need more information. You need to make a decision. You need to make moves. You need to execute. You need to stop negotiating with yourself. So today, I'm going to give you a framework for how to move with conviction in your life, in your business, and every area where you've been stalling. And I'm going to make it practical because I don't want you to be fired up for 5 minutes. I want you to have the ability to reach the life that you want. Let's start with the truth most people avoid. Indecision is still a decision. There's an old quote by a psychologist, William James, and he nails this perfectly. When you have to make a decision and don't make it, that in of itself is a choice. I'm going to repeat that. When you have to make a choice and you don't make it, that in of itself is a choice. When you don't choose, you are making a choice. You choose comfort, safety. You choose something familiar. You choose to stay where you are. And then you wonder why your life feels so much like it's a broken record. It's on repeat. It's more like Groundhog Day, if you've ever seen that movie. Playing the same day over and over. It's like the days are moving, but you're not. Like time is passing, but your standards aren't rising. Like you're busy, but you're not progressing. That's what hesitation does. Hesitation is the silent killer of momentum. Because fear doesn't need to tackle you. Fear just needs you to pause, to take another second, to delay. Fear just needs you to think about it long enough that your emotions and your drive to do it cool off and you go back to normal. It's almost like you forget that you even had that goal or that dream or that drive. And being normal is the most expensive place on earth. Normal costs the first future that you want. So what does conviction actually mean? Conviction means you decide and you align your actions with that decision, especially when you don't feel like it. Conviction means you move before you feel ready, before you think the time is right, before the perfect conditions. Conviction means you don't require certainty to take the first step. Confidence is what you get after you've proved yourself by doing something. Conviction is what you get before you've proven it. Confidence is a reward. Conviction is a requirement. Most people say, I just need to feel confident. I would challenge that you don't. You need to commit. You need to decide. Because the truth is, you rarely feel confident at the beginning of anything worth doing. The beginning is messy. It's uncertain. The beginning is awkward. The beginning is where you learn how to become the person you said that you wanted to be. Conviction is refusing to let that awkward beginning talk you out of your future and to stop you. General George Patton has a quote that I think fits perfectly right here. A good plan violently executed. A good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. Now, I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm telling you to stop hiding behind perfection. Because perfection is usually just fear wearing a suit. Perfection is the excuse you use to avoid judgment. It's what you use to avoid failing in public. It's what you use to avoid discomfort from growth. Perfection is the excuse you use to delay because you think if it's not perfect just yet, then it's not worth executing on. I want you to think about Apple. Maybe you're listening to this on an Apple iPhone. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube on your MacBook. Doesn't matter. But they release products, and the next thing you know, there's an update. They ship every product, even though it's not perfect. They push out update after update after update to fix what is not right or is broken after people started using the product. Conviction says, I'd rather be imperfect and moving than perfect and stuck. There is psychology behind this also. Why so much hesitation drains you so much. Decision fatigue is basically what happens when your brain keeps making the same decision over and over again, especially when you're tired, because every unresolved choice drains your energy. Every maybe drains your energy. Maybe I'll decide later drains your energy. And when your energy is drained, you don't rise to your goals. You fall to the defaults. And most of the time, that's the person that you were. That's who you don't want to be anymore. And you have to rise to the person that you need to be to reach your goals. And that's why indecision is so exhausting. You're not exhausted because you're doing too much. You're exhausted because you're carrying too much in your brain at once. You have so many open loops that it is draining your energy. Your conviction closes those loops. When you decide, I train every day. I don't miss my commitments. I tell the truth. I execute the plan for 90 days before I evaluate it. You remove hundreds and hundreds of micro decisions from your week. You stop waking up and debating with yourself. You stop wasting energy on internal arguments. You stop burning mental fuel on negotiation. Indecision drains your brain and makes it lag. Conviction frees it up. It's like closing all those windows on your computer to make it run faster. And you can feel it just like you can see it on your computer. Everything gets easier because you have made the decision and you just feel the weight lift off your shoulders. Your body relaxes, your mind clears. Not because making that decision was easy, but because you made the decision and the conviction to do something. So it made everything easier. Another one would be action biased. And that is the idea that in many situations, especially under pressure, doing something tends to outperform doing nothing. Not because every action is perfect, but because the action creates feedback. Action creates the learning. Action creates momentum. Thinking doesn't create feedback. Thinking creates theories. And theories don't build your life. You cannot take all the feedback that you're getting from action if you're using everything in theories. Action creates outcomes. And those outcomes you can judge everything else by. Those theories are just that. They're theories. Theories do not give you quantitative results that you can go off of. Movement and execution build your life. That's why people who move with conviction seem like they get lucky at everything they do. And it's not that they are lucky. They are moving. They are putting in the reps. They're putting in the work. They are collecting the data while everyone else is collecting opinions and working off of theories. If you are waiting to feel clear before you move, you will wait forever. Now, you still might be asking, what does conviction look like? Conviction in your life looks like you stop negotiating with yourself every morning. You stop asking, do I feel like training today? You stop letting the emotions set the standard because your emotions are not qualified to run your life. There was a video I saw which I actually would very much agree with. There were two gentlemen having a debate. They were going back and forth, and the one gentleman said to the other that the only emotion I feel is hate. And the other said that I am loving you right now because your emotions are fake. I'm sure I'm going to get a little bit pushback from that because someone's going to say that your emotions are not fake and your feelings are not fake. They are just the result of the decisions and the way that you've chosen to feel. Your mind is going to make up all sorts of different emotions and feelings. That doesn't mean they're accurate. That doesn't mean that you're not having them skewed in some way. You could have been through something that makes you feel a certain way for that situation. That does not mean it's accurate. It's accurate what your brain thinks it is. Two people could be in rush hour traffic. One person gets cut off and they are absolutely losing their minds. They're angry. They are flipping the bird. They are yelling out their window, cussing the other person out. Another person gets cut off in traffic, and maybe they have a viewpoint of they might have had a rough day yesterday. They might have heard some bad news. They might have had a rough morning. There are different ways to look at it. You don't actually have to be angry at everything that happens. It is just a result of something you might have been through that your brain thinks is how that you need to respond. That does not mean that's how it needs to be handled. Not in the slightest. I got off on a little tangent there, but truly, if you want freedom, you have to have standards, and you have to run your standards with conviction. And conviction doesn't mean that you treat training like a mood. It's not a vibe, but it is the standard. If you only train when you're motivated, you'll be motivated maybe once, maybe twice a week, if you're lucky. We can loop this into many different situations, but take going to the gym. I've gone to the gym or exercised in some form every day for the past 3 weeks. Now, the question that I have for you is if you went there and the week leading up to and during Christmas was busier than I have ever seen it. It was a madhouse. You were waiting 10 plus minutes for some equipment. It was insane. Fast forward to this week. The beginning of the week, it was busy as hell. The last couple of days, it's been a ghost town. I didn't actually expect everyone's New Year's resolution to fall off that fast. But the reason it did was because they did not have the conviction and the standard that they set with their New Year's resolution. And I'm sure that there's going to be somebody in that crowd that worked out for that week or two or maybe 3, felt sore, felt accomplished at that moment. But then they are going to be sitting there confused why their body is not changing. If they were truly convicted in this new aspiration that they had, their New Year's resolution, they would look at it as, I train because, for me, example, I am a man who trains. Not because I feel like it, not because I'm inspired, but because it's who I am. And if you don't have the identity yet, you build it in the same way you build everything else. Reps. You got to keep the promises that you make to yourself. Showing yourself you are serious. Let me say this clearly. The easiest way to build conviction is to do one hard thing every day that you do not feel like doing. It doesn't have to be 10, just one. Because just like muscles or fitness or losing that spare tire, conviction takes time to build. And you cannot do any of those things of losing the weight, building a muscle, getting stronger if you do not put in the reps. Now, we could change this a little bit, and we could look at conviction in relationships. Conviction in a relationship means you lead with truth. You don't avoid the hard conversations. You don't keep the peace while resentment is growing in the background. You don't let things slide for months and then explode. Conviction means that you handle it, and you handle it while it is small. Conviction means that you choose respect over being comfortable and staying away from those discomfort or those uncomfortable situations. A lot of people are convicted in business, but they become a coward where they put their tail between their legs like a scared, defeated dog when they get back home. They sell all day, they take all the risks, but they won't sit down and have an honest conversation with their partner. They won't admit they've checked out. They won't admit that there's something they did that hurt the other person. They won't say, I'm sorry, I've been distracted. They won't take the time and make the decision that this matters. Conviction is not selective. If it's real, it shows up everywhere. Now let's take conviction into business. Conviction in business means you stop changing plans every time you feel uncomfortable. You stop chasing new strategies like they're lottery tickets. You stop looking for magic funnels and perfect scripts and a perfect ad or the perfect post. Those things matter, but they're not the foundation. The foundation is execution. Conviction means that you pick a plan and you run it long enough to give it a fair shot. You don't quit because it gets boring. You don't quit because it gets hard. You don't quit because the results don't show up immediately. Immediate results are so rare. They do happen sometimes, but the likelihood of them happening over and over and over again are slim to none. You have to put in the work because compounding results are guaranteed if you stay consistent. But consistency requires conviction. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it all happen. I actually think that's a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. You can fact check me on that if you want, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. When you decide, you see opportunities that you did not see before. When you decide, you start actually moving in the direction of your goals and the life that you've always wanted. And that movement reveals the options. When you decide, your actions align, and the alignment creates momentum. That's why it feels like the universe is conspiring. It's not magic, it's not luck. Your indecision is scattering you. Your conviction concentrates you down to doing the things that you need to do, even if you don't want to. I want to touch on pressure for a second. Pressure is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. Pressure is the sign that you're in the arena. Most people quit at the first sight of pressure because they think pressure means that it is not for me. That's not what it means. Pressure means this is where you're getting forged. This is where things are going to happen. The pressure is where your conviction is going to be tested. Easy days don't prove anything. Hard days reveal who you truly are. Freedom isn't built on easy days. It's built on the hard days when you don't want to do anything. So like I touched on earlier, here is the framework I want you to write down. I call it the conviction filter. It's 4 questions, super easy. May not be easy to answer all the time, but let's get into it. The first question is, what is the standard of the person I'm becoming? Not who you used to be, not the one you are today, on your worst possible day. The person you're building. What do they do? What do they not do? What do they tolerate? And what do they not tolerate and they eliminate? And the second question is, am I hesitating because of logic or fear? You have to be brutally honest with this one, because logic has a calm tone, but fear, on the other hand, has a convincing tone that is emotional based and will drag you down and make you think that you are making the perfect choice. And fear is going to sound something like, what if it doesn't work? What if they judge me? What if I waste money? What if I look stupid? What if I fail? Question 3. What action would a decisive person take in the next 24 hours? Not the next month, not the next year. The next 24 hours. Decisive people don't live for someday, they live for today. While they have long-term visions and goals, the execution and everything that you want is done today. You have to make efforts day over day, and that starts right now. Question 4. Am I willing to stay with this long enough for it to compound? Because people quit right before momentum shows up. They quit at week 2 or week 4. They quit when novelty wears off. They quit when it becomes hard, because that's exactly where the momentum wears off. Because all the emotionally backed decisions and choices and goals, you've lost it. And that's where it separates you from the rest of the crowd, because you have made a complete decision and you are convicted on that decision. You're not running off emotions and nice to haves. You are being pushed by your conviction. Before I finish, I want to make one distinction, because some people hear conviction and they think it must mean stubborn, like you never adjust, you never change your mind. That's not conviction. That's ego and being hard-headed. Conviction is commitment to the mission, not attachment to the right choice or being right. Conviction says, I will do the work. I will take and put in all the work that is needed. I will do the reps. I will show up when I don't want to, and I will adjust based on reality. I will base everything on my results. I will not base anything off emotion. Being stubborn says, I will protect my pride, even if the data proves me wrong. So here's a simple way to keep conviction clean. Decide fast, then review on a schedule. That means you don't wake up every day redeciding your standards. You decide once, then you execute for a set period of time. And only after that period of time do you evaluate it. For example, you run the plan for 30 days, then you review it. Not after one day, not after one bad day, not after one slow week. 30 days. That's when you review it. Because if you evaluate it too often, you'll confuse emotion with the information. And you'll keep pivoting, not because it's smart, but because you're uncomfortable and emotional. So here's a quick exercise you can do today. Grab a piece of paper, write it down at the top. The 3 decisions you've been avoiding. Just 3. The one that keeps looping in your mind. The ones that show up when you're in the shower. The ones that show up when you're driving. The ones that steal your focus. Next to each one, write the cost of not deciding. Be specific. The cost in money, the cost in time, maybe the cost in energy, or is it maybe the cost in respect? Or is it the cost in your peace? Because once you actually see the cost, hesitation stops feeling so harmless. It stops feeling so neutral. You start realizing it's charging you interest every single day. Then out of that list, you're going to pick the smallest next action to take action on that first decision. You're not going to pick all 3. You're not going to pick the mountain, just the next step. You're going to send a text. You're going to book a call. You're going to outline, it may be a book you're writing. Maybe you're going to outline a website that you need to do. You're going to outline the next steps for the 24 hours for the business you're building. You're going to buy a domain, walk into the gym, tie the shoelaces on your running shoes. Doesn't matter what it is. That's conviction. Small decisions and steps that you're stacking daily. You're not going to second guess it. After you decide, you've made a decision. If you decide to make that call, you're going to make it. If you start training, you're going to train. If you decide to launch that offer, you're going to freaking launch that offer. If you decide to have a conversation, you're going to freaking have that conversation. Conviction is not a feeling. It's a practice. So move with conviction in your life. Move with conviction in your business. Move with conviction in your standards and your relationships. Because if you don't do it for you, maybe do it for future you, the person on the other side of your hesitation. And you know that if you are tired of being stuck and you are looking out for future you, the person that you know that you can become, do it for them. Do it for your family. Do it for your children. Do it for the people that you hired to be in your business. Make the decision and then make the move. If this episode helped you think clearer, act stronger, or take ownership in some way, share it with someone that you care about. That's how this message spreads. And if you haven't yet, please leave me a 5-star review for the show. It tells the platform this message matters, and it helps reach more and more people who need it, who have not found it yet. And remember that freedom isn't found, it's built one decision, one conviction at a time, even if you don't feel like it and if you're under pressure. Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and I will catch you guys on the next one.